No one has been born in 27 years. Hospitals still keep delivery rooms scrubbed and sealed, but they're empty, preserved like shrines to a future that never came. The sterile cribs, the fetal monitors, the bassinets under dim lights, museums, all of it. No one talks about the last birth. No official record says who it was or where, just a vague consensus that it happened sometime around 2025. After that, silence. The world didn't end with a bang. It just quieted. The last generation, my generation, are all in our 30s now. We were the tail end, the final flicker. There are no toddlers, no children, no adolescents, no need for schools, playgrounds, pediatricians. The language of childhood has become foreign. Words like kindergarten, diaper, lullaby. No one uses them unless they're drunk or cruel. We still don't know what caused it. Fertility collapsed across every nation, every people, every gender. Theories changed monthly. Viruses, hormonal pollution, genetic bottleneck, radiation, climate collapse. Some whispered about divine judgment, but no God ever claimed the blame. By 2033, after a decade of fruitless in vitro trials and billions in biotech losses, the consensus shifted. It's not coming back. That's when the suicides began. Not loud or dramatic, just steady. People who had spent their lives preparing to raise children realized their purpose had been amputated. Entire cities depopulated not by disaster but by slow grief. Governments dissolved or calcified. The United Americas consolidated. The People's Bloc turned inward. Europe fractured and reformed around hydro-farming zones. Money still exists, but no one prints it. What's the point of building anything for a future with no inheritors? We are the last. And the world is starting to forget how to pretend otherwise. In the early days, they tried to preserve normalcy. Robots kept teaching in empty classrooms. AI read fairy tales to dust-covered libraries. Synthetic voices played lullabies through city intercoms. An automated comfort routine, soothing no one. Now, it's different. The silence is accepted. I live in one of the green zones, what used to be Vermont. Most of the old cities are gone, reclaimed by moss and ruin. Only a few dozen thousand people remain in this region, all aging, all infertile, all dying off one by one. Nobody talks about the future anymore, only the rate of decline. 3 days ago I saw a child, a real one, short, thin, maybe 5 or 6 years old, standing at the edge of the forest behind my commune, watching us. He didn't run, didn't speak, just stared. And then he was gone. Everyone says I imagined it, that my mind's cracking from grief like everyone else's, that it was a projection, a ghost, or a dream that followed me out of sleep. But I know what I saw. And last night, I saw him again. This time he was closer. He came again on the third night. Same blank stare, same stillness. Closer this time, barely 15 feet from the fence. I didn't speak. I didn't move. Just watched him standing there, half lit by the flickering solar lamps that line the perimeter of our commune. His skin was pale, almost gray, hair black and clean, not matted like a feral's. His clothes didn't match anything I'd seen in decades, stitched and rough, not printed or woven by standard fabricators. No ID tag, no biosignal. And still, not a word. Then he turned and walked into the woods, barefoot, leaving no prints. The others laughed when I told them. Sarah said I'd been drinking the mushroom spirits again. Devin asked if I was trying to get exiled. Starting ghost rumors was a good way to end up in solitary. But something in their eyes said they were afraid I might be right. The next day, I left early. I took a ration pack, a filter flask, and an old analog camera, the kind with film, not memory. Our tech has been degrading for years. Satellites falling, networks fragmenting. Nobody builds anything anymore. We just salvage and patch like skin stretched over a corpse. I followed the boy's path into the woods. It was quiet. Not peaceful. Dead. No birds. No insects. Just the wind whispering through dying trees. Some of them still bleed resin from the sky fires that scorched the canopy 20 years ago. 3 hours in, I found footprints. Bare, small, human. And something else. Drag marks. As if someone had been pulling something heavy through the moss. A sled? A bag? A body? I followed. It led to a clearing. At the center was a circle of old solar lamps, long dead, their panels shattered by time. In the middle sat a structure. Not a house, not a shack. More like a cocoon, made of woven branches, fabric scraps, shattered plastic, and bones. Animal bones. Or so I thought. Until I saw the jawbone. Human. Small. Maybe the size of a toddler's. I stepped inside. It stank of mold and rot, but it was warm, lived in. And at the far end, nestled beneath a pile of scavenged blankets, was a pile of old tech, screens, batteries, IV tubing, syringes, surgical tools, carefully arranged. Like a shrine. And in the center, a hand-drawn picture. Crude, stick figures, a sun, a house, a child between two adults, but their faces, wrong, distorted, blacked out with heavy charcoal. I felt watched. And when I turned around, he was there again. Closer than ever. He didn't run. He didn't blink. He just pointed at me, then at the pile of tech. Then he opened his mouth. No sound came out. Just a slow, ragged breath like air being forced through rusted pipes. He raised one hand and touched his throat. Burn scars. Old, deep, and surgical. I stepped toward him and he backed away. Not with fear, more like warning. I understood. Not yet. Then he vanished to the trees again, without a sound. I didn't go back to the commune that night. I stayed in the cocoon. And when I woke the next morning, there was food beside me. Fresh fruit, a sealed water pouch, and a second drawing. This one showed me. Standing next to him. Both of us holding hands. Below us, in shaking, childlike letters. You were not supposed to live this long. I stared at the drawing for a long time. The child's handwriting was unmistakable, but the words didn't make sense. You were not supposed to live this long. It sounded like an accusation, or a prophecy. I folded the drawing and slipped it into my coat. Then I made a choice I hadn't made in years. I went looking for answers. I hadn't stepped foot inside a central data node since the networks began to collapse. Most of them are dark now, offline, stripped for copper and coolant. But the outpost near the old wind farm still hummed faintly. The security systems were gone, the doors hanging loose like broken teeth. Inside, dust clung to the terminal screens. Emergency lights flickered with the last trickle of solar charge. I found a live console, barely functional. I used a hand crank battery to boot it, heard the groan of ancient drives waking up. The OS was pre-collapse, but the local archives were still there. I typed a query. Fertility collapse origin. It spat back a cascade of restricted files. Most were tagged redacted. I bypassed them with an old override code we used to use during the census sweeps, the kind you weren't supposed to remember, but no one was watching anymore. One file opened. Project Quiet Sun, I read. And I wished I hadn't. It wasn't a disease, not a mutation, not a curse. It was a design. The collapse had been engineered, quietly, globally, coordinated across sectors under the guise of fertility treatment reform and nanomedicine delivery. It started with the implants, those tiny regulatory devices injected into every citizen during the Reproductive Health Act push in the early 2020s. Supposedly for hormonal balance, supposedly reversible. They weren't. They were permanent. And they were programmed to activate slowly. Generational sterilization. Painless, invisible, humane. And worst of all, intentional. There was a note from the lead systems bioethicist, dated 5 years before the last known birth. This is not extinction. This is anesthesia. We are putting humanity to sleep gently while the planet tries to heal. No more children, no more screams, just silence, and then peace. I vomited in the stairwell on my way out. The wind had picked up outside, cold, sharp. A storm was forming on the horizon, stretching like bruised muscle across the sky. That's when I saw the boy again, standing at the edge of the field. This time he wasn't alone. 3 others with him, all children, different sizes, different skin, silent, watching me. They didn't blink, didn't smile. They just turned and walked into the tall grass together, vanishing like smoke. That night I returned to the commune. They were waiting for me. Sarah, Devin, others. They'd seen the children too. And more than that, they'd remembered things. Dreams, flashes, half-erased memories of long-forgotten procedures. Scars they never questioned. Surgeries they were told were standard. We weren't just survivors. We were test subjects. The last viable generation wasn't viable at all. We were sterile from birth, genetically edited before implantation, designed not to carry on the species but to end it slowly. A generation raised in a dying world with no future, no successors, no purpose, except to fade away peacefully. Except something went wrong. Someone had children. We stayed up all night comparing what we knew, what we remembered, where we'd seen children. Patterns began to emerge, locations, seasons, sightings, and one name kept surfacing in the scraps of decoded data. Echo 9, a facility, or a protocol, or a person. We didn't know yet, but we knew where to look. And we knew the silence was about to end. We left the commune before dawn. 6 of us, all from different corners of the fading world. Sarah, Devin, Miriam, Torres, Lee, and me. Armed with little more than analog maps, scavenged rations, and determination that felt suspiciously like desperation. We were chasing a ghost. Echo 9 was listed in the archived files as a contingency site, a high-level biotechnical facility established under the Global Continuity Accord. Coordinates pointed west, deep into the dust zones, places where rain hadn't fallen in a decade and where nothing green remained. We traveled by solar caravan, stopping only to filter irradiated water and sleep in ruins. The old highways were skeletal, cars rusted mid-escape, billboards still bleached with old slogans, "The future is fertile." A joke now. Devin died on the 6th day. Heat stroke. Nothing heroic. We buried him in cracked soil and kept moving. Echo 9 was buried beneath what used to be a private biotech campus in Colorado, masked by dead trees and rusted drones still hanging from cables in the canopy like vultures. The entrance was hidden beneath a greenhouse dome, long shattered, ivy fossilized in dust. But the biometric scanner still worked, one of the last functioning pieces of ancient tech. It didn't reject us. It welcomed us. Identity confirmed. Cohort Omega. Access granted. The door hissed open. We descended into the dark. The lower levels were pristine, cold, lit by phosphorescent strips embedded in the walls, emergency systems still humming, cryo units still intact, some holding preserved genetic material, hundreds of vials marked with labels like H. sapiens viable zygote, Echo 001F, Echo 003M, genetic recombinant neural mod adaptive, rows and rows of failed hope, or failed intention. We found the nursery on sublevel 3. It wasn't a nursery anymore. More like a lab, a A womb built into a machine. Artificial uterine units lined the walls, most now dark. But 5 still pulsed with bioelectric current, the hum like breath, soft and unbroken. 1 had recently been emptied, and beside it, a chair. A child-sized chair. Still warm. Sarah found the journal. Or rather, the logs, embedded in the wall, scrawled in old analog interface. Someone had overridden the automated reports with personal notes, written by hand, dated from the early 2030s. They confirmed what we feared. Echo 9 was not a facility of prevention. It was a safeguard, a place to hold the key should we ever change our minds. But no one came. So I did what they wouldn't. I activated the failsafe, not a cure, a correction, a second kind of child. There were more logs, more confessions. Whoever had stayed behind hadn't died quickly. They'd watched the synthetic embryos awaken, grow, learn, and change. They're not like us. Their neural patterns exceed predicted norms. They communicate without words. They sense intention. They do not need language or laws or parents. They are aftermath. Not meant to repopulate, meant to replace. That's when the lights dimmed. And they stepped into the room. 5 of them. Children. The same ones we'd seen before. Pale, silent, still. But now, they weren't watching. They were studying. Sarah reached out. One of them touched her hand, and she collapsed. Not in pain, not in fear. Just folded in on herself, like someone finally allowed to sleep after a lifetime of insomnia. I held her. She wasn't breathing. No pulse. But her face looked peaceful. The tallest of them, maybe the oldest, spoke. Not aloud. Inside my mind. A voice like wind through dry grass. This world was not meant for more. We were the answer to the question no one dared ask. You were not supposed to live this long. I asked why. Why end it this way? Why not fight for the species? For hope. The voice did not waver. Hope is crueler than death. Your kind would build again, pollute again, burn again. They chose mercy. We were not the survivors. We were the taper, the slowing heartbeat before the silence. The children, if they were still children, turned and left us in the nursery one by one, vanishing into the corridors of the deep facility. No alarms, no threats, no goodbyes. Just that voice, echoing in my head as the lights dimmed further. Sleep now. We will remember for you. That was 2 days ago. I don't know how many of us made it out. I write this not to warn anyone. There's no one left to warn. I write it because we always believed extinction was a tragedy. But we never considered that it might have been a gift.